Hi, Screen Magazine. Jenna Mark here with executive producer, director, documentarian extraordinaire, Josh Zeman. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you very much.
So you have a very exciting and I use the word riveting project that will be premiering in Chicago this weekend. Checkpoint Zoo. It's a documentary that I don't know if many people know the backstory of it. It did catch a lot of headlines though. So really quickly, for those who don't know, it is about a group of volunteers who rescued nearly 5,000 animals out of a zoo in Ukraine when the start of the war happened. From your standpoint, the first thing I need to know is how did you get involved?
Basically, I'm not Ukrainian. I don't even speak Ukraine. I, like many filmmakers, journalists, artists, I guess, I was interested in the war. It just doesn't make any sense why this would happen. And I think like a lot of Americans were kind of terrified at this idea of a big World War II st type of war. I saw an article on the front page of the New York Times about a chimp named Chi-Chi, who actually you see in the film. And Chi-Chi had escaped from this temporary zoo where it was being held because it was originally at the place that we're talking about, Feldman Eco Park. And that place had been terribly bombed. So Chi-Chi was staying someplace else, and Chi-Chi had escaped. And Chi-Chi, this chimpanzee, was walking through the middle of Freedom Square in the middle of Kharkiv. And Kharkiv is only 30 miles from the border of Russia. She was walking through Freedom Square. And it just kind of hit me, like this. Here's a story of a chimpanzee looking for its freedom. The Ukrainian people are looking for their freedom. And it was just right there. But there was also a piece of video. And as Chi Chi's walking, the video was scanning the crowd. And the crowd was, they were all smiling. And these were people who were being bombed endlessly. They didn't know whether they were going to live or die. Yet somehow this animal gave them such joy. They were smiling in that one moment. And I was like, okay, there's a story here. And so I called up the zoo. They didn't speak any Ukrainian. All I did literally was type the name of the zoo in Google, and then the name of the zoo pops up with a telephone number. I call them. I'm like, "Hi, I'd like to do a documentary." They're like, "We don't speak any English." And so one of the guys you later see in the film called me back, and he says, "Yes, it would be great, to make a movie about the zoo." He goes, "Would you like me to send a piece of footage that went viral?" And I was like, "Yes." And he sent me this little piece that did go viral. Was on Colbert about this guy Timothy, one of the volunteers, driving a Sprinter van out of the zoo, evacuating full of kangaroos, and it was just the cutest thing in the world. And he says, "I have many more pieces of footage that went viral," and so he just started sending me all this footage. It was amazing.
And then from that, you formed what is now Checkpoint Zoo.
Yeah, so they would just send me every night. They would send me terabytes of footage, basically shot by these four young boys who were there and kids with cell phones, they were just taking selfies and videos everywhere of everything that they were doing. And it was great. Although there were like 2,000 clips that were like 30 seconds long. And I'm like, Vadim, why are all these clips 30 seconds long? And he's like, TikTok is 30 seconds, no? So I was very worried that I was going to have just one film of a whole big montage. But it was an amazing. And then we just pieced together the story from what we had heard and read about. And then I went over to Ukraine about 6 months into the war.
So it's interesting you say that because when you're watching the film, the first thing I'm thinking is the wherewithal for them to document all of this as they're doing it. And it's not, it's very dangerous, right? As you said, it's 30 miles from the border and they're herding lions and tigers and bears. And I'm not trying to quote The Wizard of Oz. They're actually like trying to figure out how to get these animals to safety who are starving and scared for their lives. And they're documenting it.
Yeah, like the dude's like, I got a lion in the back, and like he pushes the camera over, and there's like a lion. There's no gate or fence. He just has a anesthetized lion sleeping in the back of his van. I mean, anybody would kind of want to take that picture to prove that it really happened. But it's also something else. Like, you know how on YouTube, you see all these pictures of like or videos of divers like freeing whales from fishing gear or people pulling buckets off the tops of raccoons or bears, and the animals always like turn around and you think that they're saying thank you. You don't quite know, but it's like 1,000 of these clips of these animals and people interacting in these kind of magical moments. Now, it's also terrifying because they're at war, but you get to see this interaction between people and animals. And here's the thing about war. War is created, its brutality is meant to strip away your humanity, right? That's what war is. Somehow, in saving these animals, these people found their humanity again. The animals gave them their humanity, and they ended up being not just like good people, but they were also really badass. Like they were fearless because they were fighting for animals. They were tough.
I mean, the things that they did, there were points where I was like, I don't know if I can look. Like when that lion is in the back of that car, I'm like, how long till it wakes up?
I was watching it, the footage that I was getting in, I was terrified. I was like checking my watch, and they're like, go, 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 cursing at each other, like, we got to get this quick. The other thing was they only had very little anesthesia.
Right.
And so they wanted to save it. So because they wanted to save anesthesia, whenever they were anesthetizing an animal, they used like just under the prescribed amount. So the lion was always like drunk. So it wasn't fully anesthetized, it was drunk. So, and they would always like mess with each other because they're boys, they love screwing around. So there was one guy who was always a fraidy cat. And whenever they were like, hauling a lion out, they'd be like, look, he's awake, because the lion would open up its eye. Terrifying, but that's guys messing with each other. And it was terrifying. Like, can you imagine putting a lion in the back of a van
No.
on a tarp and the lion opens up its eye and looks
No.
at you for a quick second?
I mean, the kangaroos were cute, the birds were cute, the monkeys were cute. When it got
Right.
to those bigger animals, I was like, oh no, it's gonna wake up. It's gonna wake up. Because as you said, it's not fully unconscious.
Yeah, and of course the one thing that will yank an animal out of its some semi-conscious state, loud noises. And there were just bombs going off all the time. Whenever they brought in they couldn't bring in bigger trucks because the Russians would see the bigger trucks and the drones would see them, and like within 2 minutes they'd start to get bombed. So they had to do most of it in Sprinter vans, but eventually the Russians would see them too. So it's really an unbelievable situation. You had basically the Russian army on one side of the zoo, the Ukrainian army on the other side of the zoo. They were just shooting bombs at each other, and anything that didn't hit the other side fell on top of all these animals trapped in the zoo. It was a Mission Impossible rescue.
It was. I was enthralled the whole time. But I want to touch on because there's a certain actor who also fell in love with the story and the documentary. And I think it's important to mention because Leonardo DiCaprio does not just put his name on anything. Um, I know you can't speak for him, but what pulled him into this?
Leo is great in that he supports a lot of films that are about wildlife and about the environment. And that is what, if you're in that situation and you've got that gift and you've got that reach, that's exactly what you should be doing with your life. That's a brilliant thing. I did actually another film called The Loneliest Whale that he executive produced. So I had a relationship with him. I sent everybody the trailer, and we had this trailer that would just kind of make you cry within like 5 minutes. And the minute they saw it, they're like, we're in.
Yeah, I mean, the first five, you don't even need to get through the first 5 minutes to feel the emotion instantly. So I can only imagine that trailer. Take us back to now, you mentioned you went to Ukraine.
Twice.
So twice, wow. So what was obviously you interviewed the guys that pulled off the rescue and all of that, which is very prominent in the film, but what was that experience like for you?
It was crazy. I had never been in a war zone before, and it was hot. Like when we went there, I had to wear a helmet, fully rated, flak jacket, and we had to fly into Warsaw because you can't go into Ukraine. A woman actually has to drive you over because the men can't leave and go. And we just went through all these checkpoints, and There were fires and explosions, but it was such a great story. It was such an important story about these people saving animals and like compassion and empathy. And I didn't even feel scared when I was there. I was like, we're getting this story. I was like those kids. We're getting this story and we're gonna tell this story and nothing's gonna stop us.
Wow. So like the humanity just overtook everything.
I, it's the humanity, but what is it with the animals? Like it's like the animal humanity. Oh, that it's saving those animals and telling the story for the good of humanity overtook everything. Suddenly, when we wanted to make the film, we were like, okay, how are we going to make this film? It's a Mission Impossible story. Let's kind of make it like Inglorious Bastards, where it's like one of those 1970s, films where the impossible mission and there's all these different characters. And that's how we treated it. And that's how it felt. It was like, we're going to pull this off.
So when you went back to interview them, obviously this happened at the start of the war, the rescue of
Mhm.
the animals and everything that they did. So there's some time removed between them pulling this off and you coming.
I went there a month after their last day of the evacuation. And if you see the film, you'll know that the last day is actually a really emotional day for them and because of this thing that happens. So they hadn't had time to process this whole thing. When I got there, I was really the first person to ask them about it. I didn't speak any Ukrainian. I just showed them the the funding trailer that we did. And they looked at the funding trailer, and you could see it in their eyes. That's the thing you can do as a filmmaker. Sometimes you don't even need to say anything. You don't need to translate. They saw it, they closed the computer, and they're like, okay, let's talk.
Wow. I'm thinking that must have been an experience within itself. Because having seen it, I know what you're referencing.
Yeah.
And that is that is a dramatic moment and to be interviewing somebody as someone who does this for a living.
The whole thing felt really dramatic, but in because it's war, but because of the story, because of what happens, because of these animals, because they felt that the animals knew that they were being saved. Like these people had an experience with another species, with earthlings, you might say, whatever we want to call them, that you can't even talk about in some respects. You can't describe to somebody else the feelings of looking into an animal's eyes and that animal turning around and saying like either help me or thank you.
Right? Or like putting the paw up to the glass, like we
Like those moments were all over the place. And you'd be like, "Oh, remember when that monkey like said thank you or remember when that bear turned around and said thank like literally they have all these moments."
it's crazy. I mean, I guess we see it with like if you rescue a dog or you rescue a cat, like there's a difference, right, in the dog or the cat's behavior that's rescued versus if you get one from a breed or like there's a different sort of attachment they have with you because you save.
Oh,
So the animals must have, I mean, what they must have been feeling and experiencing prior to the rescue. I mean, humans understand, they're aware. Animals have no idea.
animals don't care about borders. They don't care about treaties. They don't care about NATO or bombs or anything. They just care about survival and love, actually. And
Right.
so the fact that these people were able to save them, care for them, and then it just gets funny because animals are funny, right? So, it's like, okay, we have 4,750 animals. What are we going to do with them all? When they bring them to the owner's house, he's like, bring them to me. Well, this guy had no idea what it was going to be like to have 4,750 animals in his house. His house was trashed.
I mean, it's literally a real life Noah's Ark unfolding in real time is what we witness in this.
Yeah, absolutely. There was one time they were I'm gonna say this, and you're gonna be like, really? There's a bird, right? It's called a cassowary. It's like one of the most dangerous birds because of this like sharp talon that it has. And everybody knows in the animal world, cassowaries, you don't want to mess with cassowaries. They're like ostriches that are like lethal. And so they're like, oh, how are we gonna take this animal out? What are we gonna do? They all grab like large pieces of sheet metal and they all have these A plans and B plans and C plans how they're going to rescue this animal. And they back the van up to the side. They open up the doors. They're all ready. You know, if they're going to have to shoot it, if it goes and tries to attack somebody, they open up the door, and the cassowary hops out into the yard and literally just walks right into the back of the van. Everybody looks at each other, they shut the door, and they drive off. It was all these moments like that.
I'm sure the terror of not understanding what was going on from an animal standpoint helped
Yeah.
their efforts.
Yeah. And you
The
said it
animals had
before, you know, like rescues are a different type of thing. Even when we talk about animals, right? When somebody's like, "Oh, what's this dog?" and you just your first thing is that's a rescue. Like that's how you talk about that animal. This is the same thing, you know. There's a bond there that's unbreakable.
Yeah, it's really remarkable. And you to watch it from start to finish is riveting is the only way I could put it. I have to ask you though, as a filmmaker, you didn't have the control of what you were getting, right? You had the footage that they took and you had to work with that. How do you even approach that?
It's a gamble. It's a gamble. You roll the dice. I didn't even speak Ukrainian. The first time I went there, it was me and another guy. This guy is his name is Olivier Sarbil. He's an amazing DP. He's formerly Special Forces. So that's how he's able to go in. He did like Restrepo. So we go in there. I had never done a foreign language doc. We get in there. We're sitting there with all these people. And I just never thought about this. And so the fixer is over my shoulder. I asked the question. He translates. Ukrainians are notorious for incredibly long answers, like 20-minute answers. And he couldn't translate fast enough. And it was really slowing down and it wasn't working. And I was like, forget it. Just ask them the question. And I'm going to look into their eyes. And if they start to, you could see it in their eyes. So I didn't even know the end of the movie. I didn't even know what they were saying. As long as they were like getting emotional about it, that's all I could do. I didn't even know what they were saying until I got home and then we put it in a translator.
Wow. So you really were like blind going through this.
Totally without a net. I mean, documentary filmmaking is without a net. Even the third act, which you saw, I didn't know that I had that footage.
Hmm.
Not at all. Until somebody said, "Hey, did you see this footage that just came in from this German news guy who was there filming?" I was like, "No." He's like, you better sit down. This is some of the craziest stuff I've ever seen."
Wow. Like I'm just thinking about that process. It's got to be you really got to trust yourself as the producer and director of a project.
But then at the same time, it was unbelievably satisfying. Like you could work 18 hours and you turn around, like I have this little post-it that says, you know, it says, "This is not for you." It says, "This is not for you. This is for a cause." You know, that's what it felt like. It was just, it was for some, it was, I was just a vessel, you know? I was lucky enough to be there, to make the call, to get the footage, to go there, to ask the questions. But these are the true heroes. I just was really lucky that I was able to tell their story and they were cool with it.
And that they videoed all of it.
Listen, so the funny part is these boys don't come in until like 3 weeks, 4 weeks into the war. Um, But before that, it's just a bunch of older people. And I was like, "Svetlana, do you have any footage?" She's like, "Why would I have footage? What am I? I'm not taking pictures. We're trying to save the animals, you know?" And they were just there was no footage. But the minute these four kids get there, suddenly they're taking selfies, they're rehearsing their things, and they're like, take one, you know, like, "Oh, you messed it up, you know, do it again, you know." So it's great. Suddenly I have like a whole movie. But it was to the point where Vitali, who's the head zookeeper, would be screaming and cursing at these guys, like, "Guys, stop taking the goddamn photos or videos. We're gonna get killed," you know. And they're like, "Okay, but one more," you know.
The priorities here, guys.
Totally, totally. Pixar, it didn't happen, you know. Like that's how they look at it.
I guess it's a product of the day and age we live in now.
But
Like
thank God. But it was like that with everybody. They would drive me out. They were like, "Oh, there was one guy here who also took some photos." I was like, "Where's he?" They're like, "Oh, he's about an hour and a half outside." of town, and like we would drive out in the middle of the night, and knock on the door while explosions are happening. I was like, "Do you have any video of you rescuing this pig?" And he's like, "I do." And so I was like, "Do you mind if I have that?" And they're like, "Who are you? What are you doing here? You're American?" It totally blew everybody's mind.
Why did you come asking for this video? That's
Exactly.
part of the movie is this zoo is what I would say is the equivalent to like SeaWorld here in America. It is a tourist attraction. It wasn't just a zoo with a bunch of animals. It was a pretty big place to visit if you ever went to Ukraine.
Yeah, I would say it was like a zoo, like a Bronx zoo. It was free for all the people in all of Kharkiv. And I literally just had a screening in Miami, and a family stood up in the front row and they said, "We used to go to this zoo every other weekend." And the guy just starts bawling. And and his family's right there in the front row. They're like, "We came to the United States 3 years ago and we used to go to this place all the time. It was the one place." And so they did a lot of that. They did a lot of work with, interestingly enough, they did a lot of therapy for soldiers who were in the 2014 war. And then Vadim would always joke, he's like, "Now our animals will need therapy."
They also
Uh,
take with like special needs children, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. In Ukraine, it's a lot easier, I guess, to work with special needs children. But there, one thing we know, documented over and over again, special needs children and animals are like chocolate and peanut butter. Like they go together and they help each other out. And this is almost the most extreme example of that, in some respects.
Yeah, totally. And these guys created a bond with each other that will last a lifetime. So I want to talk to you about you are coming to Chicago.
Yes,
The Windy City will welcome you with open arms and
I
hopefully
hope so.
some nice weather. Um, you are screening the movie at Wayfair Theater in Highland Park, correct?
That's right. Q&A, at Highland Park in the Wayfair Theater.
So,
And then it's screening all week at the Wayfair as well.
so you will be there for the premiere, which is this Friday?
Yes, this Friday.
Perfect. So what can people expect? You know, a lot of people love a movie Q&A, especially movie buffs. So what can people expect if they are in the theater on Friday to come see you?
So our Q&As are really interesting because if you've seen the film,
Mhm.
right? And you know what it's like to watch this movie and to feel what you feel at the end of this movie. And our Q&As are really entertaining for people because they're still funny stories, but they also just want to talk about the film of what they've seen because their hearts, are kind of, they feel so much. We're also going to have some animal folks. We're going to have some Ukrainian folks. So it should be a really engaging Q&A. Hopefully, I'll be somewhat engaging. And we're going to have a couple speakers, but our Q&As are really what I think bring people in because it's, as you said, it's just this kind of like amazing story. Like, how did this all happen? And people want to know about that.
No, it is. It's an amazing story, and it did catch headlines all over the world, right? Various countries helped them out. I mean, as you said, it was on Colbert, it was on late night television here. So
Yeah.
it wasn't a story that went under the radar. It was just the fact that they documented it for you to be able to say to the world, look at what they went through and look at what they did, and this is the end result. I mean, they saved every single one of those animals.
It they did not. It's the most amazing part is the anesthetizing, like when you give the animal drugs, because basically, and we had a guy, a spokesman for the Miami Zoo, and he was like, "This is, folks, this is unbelievable!" Like he couldn't believe that this one kid, Timothy, who basically like does livestock, right? And he would like walk over and he'd kind of like guess the amount of how much the animal weighed, and then he'd put it in a syringe, put it in a blow gun, and then he'd first of all like every shot he'd nail it, and then he'd be like, "Well, I played trumpet," and so. And so
You
I
Miami people that are watching, because I am Miami based. he's talking about Ron McGill. So
Yeah.
all of you can only envision what continue though.
Ron's screaming. He's like, "You don't understand. A tarpeier will rip your arm off," you know? And I think Ron was just watching it and just he couldn't believe what was going on. But also the fact that they didn't over anesthetize any animals. They always did it under, so that's why you see a couple animals in the middle of evacuating them. They suddenly jump up and try and take off like this one Black Panther. Um, but you know, it's nuts. But they did the impossible. They really did.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely I was mesmerized. I will
And
say that.
it's not just taking the animals out, it's doing it while there are bombs falling all over the place and Russian soldiers going about. Like they were sneaking in and doing this.
Right. And to the point, the bombs going off are a danger for the humans, but you add that element of if a bomb accidentally sets off an animal, you can't control how the animal is going to react. So you're risking your life saving the animals anyway, but it's amplified because you
Totally.
don't know what's going to freak the animal out or set it off, even if you do give it the anesthesia.
And once five guys are carrying a lion through a courtyard while drones are trying to drop bombs, like there's no turning back. You can't really like just drop the lion and walk away. Like you're in it. You're in it 100%.
Well, no, because like the guy says in the movie, if they get out, then everybody around, all the people around are now in danger because this lion is out
Yeah, you
on the
just
prowl.
right, you
So,
just basically kill the community.
right. It was riveting. And the fact that they thought the things that they thought to execute are remarkable. What do you want people to know about this film?
A couple of things. Number one, I think a lot of animal lovers are worried, like, am I going to see animals dying? And that's you don't. You know, it's actually an unbelievably hopeful film that I think speaks to a lot of people who rescue a lot of animals at home. If you have a dog, if you have a cat, you know, you will love this film because it will just really supercharge that bond that you have, and you'll feel a lot of the same things that you feel. Um, I also want people to, well, as you know, it's a thriller. Like it may not seem like it, but the movie's a thriller. And also it's a film that really speaks about empathy, compassion, and selflessness. And I think in this day, those things are in really short supply. And so I think we need to celebrate those individuals uh, who exemplify that. It's not a political film. It's not about Ukraine and how you believe in Ukraine. It's just kind of an anti-war film, but it's also just like a crazy cool rescue mission.
Yeah, it is. You feel like you're watching, I don't know, like a Dateline 2020 rescue of some insane situation. It really, I mean, you hear the bombs, you obviously hear them talk about the war, and you see the effects of it, but it really isn't political or this
Yeah.
or that. It really is about the humanity of what they did to save these animals.
And how they became better people for it.
Yeah, and they came together, right? Like
Yeah.
just all said we're going to do this, which is also, I mean, the way it started, I don't want to give away anything, but the way it all started too is a great example of the humanity that the movie depicts. How these boys came to volunteer to do this. It,
Yeah.
I mean, like Hollywood couldn't have scripted that.
And especially the last day too. You
Correct.
know, Hollywood couldn't have scripted that either. That's what I say. It's almost like a narrative movie.
Yeah, it is. It very much is. The Inglorious Bastards reference just keeps coming back into my.
Total. That's what I, it's like we're eagles there. It's like, there's one dude's Telly Savalas and the other one, Brad Pitt, You've got like the nerdy kid. You've got the woman who curses more than any other guy.
But it's true. It is like you do have like a. I mean, you brought up Brad Pitt, not me, but there is like an Ocean's 11 kind of edge of your seat from start to finish. Like when they're chasing them in that casino, like that is exactly what this whole movie feels.
Yeah. Yeah, I did a lot of true crime before that, so I learned all the tricks of like suspense and just like also being immersive and being there and just like letting it roll, and how to like tweak the music and this all that type of stuff.
And the reality of what they went through, I think,
Yeah, totally.
totally helped. So for those who are watching in Chicago and are now intrigued and want to come see the film, where can they go to get tickets and all of that stuff?
So a couple places. Number one, you could go to the Wayfair. And please, I guarantee you, if you go out and watch this movie, you will love it. And if you don't, find me and I will give you back your money. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. Number one. Number two, that may come back to haunt me.
I was
Uh,
going to
uh,
say, be careful what you wish for.
exactly. No, I'm that confident. That confident. We'll see. Um, screening starts at 7 p.m. Q&A afterwards at the Wayfair Theater. We are screening all weekend. There'll be other Q&As. I won't be at all of them. Uh, and the other thing you can do is please check us out. Go to www.checkpointzoo.com. You can see other places that we're screening. We were in New York, we were in LA, we were in Miami this weekend, next to Chicago. And if you love animals, if anything, come out and see this film because one thing that we do need is we need help in terms of getting this film out there and people to see it. We just, by the way, got 3.7 on Letterboxd, which is pretty amazing. So it's just about us getting out there.
A lot of people might not know what Letterbox is. It's basically like a Rotten Tomatoes where you can rate movies and films.
Yeah, it's what the kid use.
It'll all be positive because
Oh, we've been doing great. Yeah.
you won't be giving any money back. I have a feeling.
Well, that's why I made that bold prediction because that hasn't happened yet. Now
And you
somebody's
know,
now
and you
somebody's going to
know,
do it just to see if I'll give the money back. Yes, I will give you your money back.
well, that you previewed at Tribeca Film Festival. It's
Yeah.
won a slew of awards
Yeah,
already.
we actually I know because we won about 7 audience awards. We won audience awards in Tribeca, Hamptons, Mill Valley, Miami, just Aspen, like all over the place. We won all these audience awards and a whole bunch of other awards. So we've been doing really great. So I think uh, you're gonna like it or your
Midwesterners,
money back.
Midwesterners are very they're a lot tamer than us East Coast people.
Uh-huh.
I don't think they'll ask for their money back even if they don't like the movie.
Well, we'll see.
Thank you for taking the time to do this before flying out to Chicago. We want to get those theaters packed for you
Yes, ma'am.
of the movie.
Yes, ma'am.
And we appreciate you and your time, and of course, you doing what you did to bring this to light for the rest of the world.
Oh, I can't thank you enough.